One fight. Mom gets scared. She moves him in.
With your auntie and uncle in Bel-Air.
That had to be traumatic.
I'm going to invest. I'm going to look in the rise. I'm not looking to the next. You're the most valuable thing to me right now in this moment.
You can look for these quick little epic moments, or you can look to lean into relationship. You're going to find relationship is the access point to what really is your road to where reaching your God assignment lies.
That's the approach that we need to begin having. Well, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Armchair Authentic, a podcast with Rhett and Justin. It really is our hope to try to help you fulfill your God assignments through having real conversations about real life with real people. Now, Justin and I, we have a lot of fun on today's episode. We're really excited to jump to the content. But before we do want to take a moment and say thank you to every one of you who have taken the time to rate and review the podcast on all your favorite podcast streaming platforms. Now, here's what it does. Not only is it an encouragement to us, it truly is the best way we can serve people who are not on this journey yet. Now, if you are joining us for the first time, welcome. We sure would love for you to follow us on Instagram or Facebook. You can follow us at Armchair Authentic. You can also find us on Twitter, or I should say X, formerly known as Twitter, at Armchair Off Pod. Now, Justin and I have been talking about this for a while. It is our desire to begin to create some content around the questions you might be having right now in whatever the situation you're facing in life. And one of the best ways you can send us your questions is by emailing us at info@armchairauthentic.com. That's info@armchairauthentic.com. We look forward to hearing from you soon, but until then, get ready, man. Justin, we're having a lot of fun on this episode.
Yeah, today we discuss the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. We talk about McDonald's and spotlights on fire. We dive into the world of epic moments and how they're in fact not very epic for your long-term good. But there are moments that will prove to be epic but are just not recognized in the moment. So get ready, grab a Happy Meal, and enjoy the episode.
Of guys who were up to no good started making trouble in my neighborhood. I got in one little fight. My mom got scared and said, "You're moving with your auntie and I'll go to Bel-Air."
Why did his mom give him up so quick?
I have no idea. That's interesting.
One fight. Mom gets scared. She moves him in.
With your auntie and uncle in Bel-Air.
Auntie and uncle.
Auntie and uncle. They must have been they were pretty fly, auntie and uncle. Let's go.
They were, but that had to be traumatic for Fresh Prince.
It's interesting when we're at this age how we, wanna,
Yeah.
what are we deconstructing the lyrics of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air? Is that what we're doing?
I think we are, because I love the show, but the mom got rid of him because he got in a fight.
Mm-hmm. I begged and pleaded with her day after day, but she packed my suitcase and sent me on my way.
See, that's you're reading the lyrics now. Okay, see, that's not in the song.
No, see, she gave me a kiss and then she gave me my ticket. No. I put my Walkman on and said, I might as well kick it.
See, they did not have that.
Yeah, it is.
No,
oh my God.
That's not on the show.
That's not on the show.
So that's extra lyrics that the song really said. So he must have really released a song.
So first class,
in the
yo.
show.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
First class, yo, this is bad. Drinking orange juice out of a champagne glass.
Okay.
Is this what the people of Bear living like? This might be all right.
Okay.
But wait, I hear the prissy, bougie, I don't know, bourgeois and all that. Is this the type of place that they should send this cool cat? I don't think so. I'll see when I get there. I hope they prepared for the Prince of Bel-Air. Well, the plane landed, and when I came out, there was a dude looked like a cop standing there with my name out. I ain't trying to get arrested yet. I just got here. I sprang with the quickness like lightning disappeared. I whistled for a cab, and then this is when it pulled in. The license said fresh, and it had dice in the mirror. If anything, I could say this cab was rare, but I thought, nah, forget it. Yo, home's to Bel-Air.
See, I feel so much better. So he was good with this. He was
good.
excited.
He was good with with it.
Because they drank orange juice out of champagne glass.
Yeah, exactly.
And he was excited. So,
and that's why I pulled up to a house about 7 or 8 and I yelled to the cabin, yo home, smell you later. Looked at my kingdom, I was finally there to sit on my throne as the Prince of Bel-Air.
Okay.
Oh, kudos
that saves
to
everything.
Yeah.
I feel better, because they have to get the show going. They only have, I guess, 30 seconds. So they had to cut lyrics.
Yeah.
So it's traumatic when I look back. I never knew there were more lyrics. I appreciate you looking that up.
Well, that's interesting that we're even talking about this. I met Will Smith back before he was slapping people.
I remember that. I do remember you talking about that.
Yeah, it was 1993.
Yep.
And he was, we were getting on a plane from New York City to go to Atlanta. It was just after our Carnegie Hall experience with our choir that I think we mentioned the other day.
The one that I was too scared to fly.
The one that you were, and look at the moment that you missed, dude. You missed the moment.
See, I never put that together. Okay.
See, I forget.
So I could have met Will Smith had I not been afraid of flying or overcame the fear.
Yeah, you could have totally met Will Smith. And what's interesting is me and Mario Morris were standing in line at Subway, and Mario, we looked at each other. I was like, Mario, is this Will Smith? He's like, yeah, I think it's Will Smith. I was like, and we were right behind him. He's super tall. He's got a hoodie on. He's kind of trying to be incognito. He was married to Cherie Zampino at that point. I think that's her name. Yeah. And they had just had their little baby Trey. And so he was like full dad on moment. Dad, mom, like it was not Hollywood. It was not glamorous. And I don't know the dates. I don't think he was doing Fresh Prince at this. It was like DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. Remember that?
Yeah, that was weird because you always had the cool CDs. It was DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. So I always thought DJ Jazzy Jeff is the main guy. But then the show comes on.
Yep.
And we're watching that, and I'm like, it looks like the Fresh Prince got the show named after him.
Exactly.
Jazzy Jeff's the guy who comes over, and Uncle Phil constantly throws him out the house.
I know, it's so crazy. The number one guy in the group all of a sudden becomes the number two guy, and they make him look like a fool on the show. I mean, he's cool and stuff, but
it's funny though. So, I love the lawn scene where it's like it's got the grass, and the grass is being watered, and all of a sudden you get this body fly across. Whoa!
If you've never watched the show, you've got to go back. It's say classic. What you want about Will Smith now. I pray for the brother, but like at the end of the day, man, classic show. You can't argue with his craft and just the comedic genius and timing of that whole thing was awesome. But all that to say, back to the subway in line with my friend, and he's in front of us, and so I'm tapping him on the shoulder, and I'm like, hey. And that's obvious. I'm not asking, are you Will Smith? I'm like, dude, Will Smith, it's so cool to meet you, man. I know you're about to order food here at Subway, but I would love for you to autograph my seat. He's like, yeah, man. He was super cool. He said, hey, man, I'm kind of with my family at the moment. I'll do that after this. And I was like, absolutely. And I said, hey, by the way, I don't know what flight you're on, but we're about to fly to Atlanta. So if you're on that flight, get ready. There's about 100 of us, and they're all kids, and they're going to flip out the moment you walk over. He's like, man, he literally said, thank you so much for letting me know that. Kind of mentally prepared. And it's interesting at 16 how I'm even that aware. But I think I was saying it because of like, whatever you do, sign my CD first before all these girls go nuts over you. So I literally I jump out of the line, and Mario's, and I go grab my CD and I bring it over. He signs it. That was just the coolest thing. And we're getting on the plane, and he's in front of me, and he's flying first class. And I kind of forget at this moment he's in front of me. And it's him and Cherie and their baby. And as he's sitting, I'm talking to somebody behind me, and he stops, and I literally bump right into him.
Oh, gosh. He's like, this guy is
I'm like, oh, my
down.
gosh, this guy can't. And I'm like, oh, dude. I looked, I was like, oh, my God, it's Will Smith. I ran him to a Subway, I gave him a heads up about all the girls and everybody he was about to be bombarded with, all these high school. And then I got his autograph, and now I'm bumping into him. He's like, dude.
Do you remember when McDonald's had this? It was like a grand prize game, and it was you would get a miniature record when you got some kind of a meal, and you could take it home and put it on your record player. And if you played through and it played the entire song, you won $1 million.
Yeah, it was their way of marketing. Listen to this song, listen to this melody.
Oh, yeah. It was brilliant.
And if it made it through, you win the money. And I was like, oh my God.
Yours almost made it through.
I don't know how many other people did at that time, but
you
I
remember
felt
something like Big Mac McDLT, a quarter pounder with some cheese, filet of fish, a hamburger, a cheeseburger, a Happy Meal, baby breakfast, ham and cheese. And
then all of a sudden it's like, and then all like on the CD, it's like, oh man, we almost made it. Oh, okay. Well, next time, go back to McDonald's and get you a Big Mac or whatever it's called, and it's like, oh man, are you kidding me?
That was so
we were
cool.
So hooked to that. It was like a Square record though. I mean, like it was like maybe they cut it as a square.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
like stamped it, and then the circle was there. But
That's so true.
in the end, it was like I'm watching a square go around a little circle record album player. Anyway,
McDonald's.
man, dude, but you marketing genius.
It was great.
Think of that.
And they had the great playgrounds too. You could go jump right up in those things. It
Yes,
was
you could.
awesome.
It was like the Showbiz Pizza or Chuck E. Cheese
Yeah.
massive plaything with all the ball
balls, so
stuff,
you can
the
jump
red and
in.
orange and yellow. You jump into this. I mean,
Oh man!
Oh,
Well,
Lord.
I remember we'd have your dad take us there. He'd read the newspaper.
Yeah.
Sit there for 3 hours, and we would just go play at the playground.
it was the best.
It was the best.
No wonder our immune systems are so tough, man. I mean, they really are.
It's like the people who develop immunities with
Mm-hmm.
bug bites and venomous snakes, and that was us on playgrounds.
So, what does any of this have to do with the podcast? Nothing.
I think we just needed to let off some steam because we just came off a great conference.
Yes, we did. Yeah, at the time of this recording, you know, we're just coming out of the art conference.
Yep.
And if you're not familiar with the ARC conference, it's the Association of Related Churches. It's a beautiful relational network of just pastors who have come together and really want to invest into people that have a dream, and that dream of just creating a life-giving church and being the hands and feet of Jesus across the country and world.
Yes.
And I don't think anybody that ever started this ever thought it would grow to the level that it is, but it really has become this just ginormous opportunity to have a family of like-minded brothers and sisters who are on this journey together. And I tell you what, it was a huge blessing, not just attending this conference, but we would not have been able to plant One Life Church had it not been for an organization like ARC. All they did was give us some simple tools and some stuff that I had learned before, but obviously just kind of getting affirmation in what we've done right, but also some other things to think about. And we applied those things, and it set us up for success. And it really did create some momentum for us to launch well, to be able to create a life-giving church. And so that's what ARC is at the heart of it. It's relationships, and it's an opportunity to connect with pastors across the country who are leading churches. And so, it was a lot of fun, man.
It was. And even as I've said before, a lot of our talk goes into the world of pastor because that is our world. My heart goes out to pastors. I'm so grateful for the work that you guys are doing to disciple and to train up people and to bring about the good news of the gospel, and even helping us be trained and going and carrying out the good news of the gospel of Jesus. So you need this refreshing time. And I love watching these guys come in, and it's like they just have this burden they're carrying, because it is a burden, but just to see them lay it down for a moment.
Yeah.
And there's usually a great atmosphere created. It's very life-giving. If you ever had an opportunity to be at something like that, you walk in and it's like, wow, this is amazing. There's good music. There's good smells all around you. It puts you in a place. And I love watching those people come in and just rest easy. I think the highlight for me is walking the hallways, if you will, because some of the greatest relationships I've ever formed have come from some of those simple times.
I think one of the things that I walked away with was I did not want to go. Like, I was at home. I had a lot of stuff I need to do for, the church that I get to serve, and in the missions organization that we're, organically creating right now. And I was like, I'm tired. I'm worn out. I really don't want to go. And I feel like there's so much for me to be doing right now. But then I was like, get beyond your feelings and go.
Yeah.
And just get there, because you need to be there. You know that there's people there you need to connect with and communicate with. But it's so interesting how we can talk ourselves out based off our feelings of not going somewhere we know we need to go.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of pastors who have walked in those doors that you were mentioning that were feeling that way, and maybe even on their, on their face, there was that, you can tell they're tired. Many of them were just probably like, I know I need to be here, but I don't want to be here. And so that's how I felt. But I'll tell you this, man, I'm glad I got beyond my feelings and I made the choice, because my feelings eventually did line up to my choice, because by the end of the day, man, I was fired up, man, because it created so many opportunities. Now, here's the thing. You walk into a place like that and you see all these relationships happening, and you can kind of almost feel like, I don't know anybody here.
Yeah.
And so it's awkward. And so before you and I met up, I was there by myself, and I've been there before with other people. And it's a different perspective when you're walking in by yourself and you feel like, okay, I know some people that are in this room. I haven't run into them yet. And so I just started getting beyond my comfort zone and going and just inserting myself into conversations. When I'd see somebody walking by or alone, and we'd make eye contact, like, hey man, how are you doing? What's your name? And I was forcing myself. And some people are like, well, man, that comes easy for you. I'm telling you, there's some times where I'm like, I would rather not be doing this. Honestly. But it was that moment I was like, no, I need this, because I know the blessing that if I'm being a blessing to somebody else, it will in turn be a blessing to me.
Yeah.
And so I found myself in those kind of conversations. And next thing I know, and we can get into some of the conversations you and I had with other people, but by the end of the day, I was like, man, this feels so good. And then, but seeing by the end of the day too, all the other people who kind of walked in that way too are feeling rejuvenated and refreshed, and smiles and laughter. And it's like one big just party, man, of fun. But you got to I could have walked in and walked out and like, nobody connected with me, but I had to take some steps.
It's recognizing that our condition, you look for kind of you look for the epic moment, if you will, to meet the right people, or the ones who might be on the stage, or the ones that seem to be who you think are the important ones. That's something we create in our mind, as we've talked about before. That's not real. The biggest joy comes when you slow yourself down and you discover these conversations. Everybody's quite extraordinary. It's just getting to know them and having the patience and the mindset to just listen to their story. Because you'll listen to somebody, if you perceive them as great, you'd go listen to their story all day long. But it's your perception that gave you this great expectation that they have something to give. But the same extraordinary exists in everybody. You just got to go be willing to go receive it without the goal of what can I also get.
To be transparent on the podcast, we were actually talking through this conversation. We're like, man, this would be a great thing to talk about. Was something that kind of goes along a theme of something we mentioned the other day, is when is the last time you've taken the time to just sit down with somebody and hear their story and not have any other agenda. And so I have been trying to intentionally live that out for the past couple of years. And I knew going into this conference, I would have the opportunity to go back into some old habits where I'm like, hey, how you doing? And I'm engaged, but I'm really engaged to get to the next engagement, like you were talking about.
Yes.
And you can see it you could see it on my face, like, hey, you're important, but yet I'm looking for the next guy or the next person, right? But I'm like, nope, this approach is going to be different. I'm not here to meet hundreds of people. I'm here to meet one person.
That's good.
And with every moment, and I know we're doing this together as friends, and we did that with every conversation, and we walked away not only fulfilled and value added to us, but a relationship connection. We can move so fast, even in those environments, to where we're only seeing black and white and what's in it for us. But it's time for us to stop living for tomorrow and start living in today.
That's good.
And when we live in today, we won't see the world in black and white. We'll actually see the beauty of the colors that exist in the ordinary and in the unassuming.
I've been in a lot of rooms where you can see people looking for the next best thing. I've been the one who's done that, so I'm guilty of it, but I've also been the recipient of it. And you can feel the value draining from the moment that could be. I've sat there in the room where I'm talking to somebody, but their eyes are now gazing, looking for the next important person. Once again, let me admit my guilt. I've also done the same thing. God put something in your heart to accomplish, and whatever your work environment is, whether it's local church ministry like me and Rhett, or if it's in your normal job, and that is a true calling. We can tend to gauge and see the importance of people and look at them to be the one to give the value. So what I mean by that is, I believe that I might have something in my heart to achieve this, and I'm talking to this person who doesn't look like someone who would advance that. So I'm looking for that person who may, but yet I discount this person in front of me, and they may be the catalyst relationship that as you water it, as you put it in the crock pot and let it cook, that could be the very relationship that was going to accomplish the very thing in your heart. Instead, you look for a bunch of these micro moments with people that leaves you feeling very empty at the end of the night, because all you're doing is trying to keep up with the Joneses. And it reminds me of a book I read probably 13 years ago. It's called The Exceptional Presenter. And it gives this scenario of two people who are vying for this major VP role for this organization. And so in the room, if you can picture it, you have the CEO and all of his or her executives. And so candidate number one comes in, and I would say candidate number one is the most elite, if you will. They have the best education, much more well-spoken. They come into the room, and with confidence, they look at the CEO's eyes, and they lay out a plan of the value they can bring to the organization. And as they continue to look at the CEO, ends the presentation, steps out of the room. B candidate comes in. They do a great job too, because you got to be a high level to be in this room. They weren't as articulate as candidate A. They weren't as educated as candidate A. But when candidate B came in and started presenting where we could add value, the person's looking at the executives around the table saying, and if we did this, we could accomplish this. They're smiling, looking around at the table. They leave. You know what the CEO is going to do? He's going to now look at his table of executives that they have hired because they trust them to make the decision. And they're going to say, all right, which one do you think? And you know who they're going to say? They're going to say candidate B, because candidate B came in the room and made them feel valued. They made them feel seen, and they probably helped them realize this isn't a ladder climber. This is going to be someone who collaborates with this organization, which is going to bring success. So there's something to be said of walking into the room and recognizing the right moment and not skipping over it, looking for epic.
A visual picture for me, I'm thinking of a house. You know, we all want, there's two ways to enter a house for the most part. There's a front door and a back door. And oftentimes we want to come in the front door to relationships, organizations. That front door meaning we want to connect with that epic leader, that CEO, that top executive, whoever that person is for you in whatever you're trying to accomplish, that front door opportunity. But there's also a back door. So many of us try to go to the front door and try to get through that lens of, I don't want to talk to number 4, number 3, number 2 person. I want to talk to number 1, because if I can get in front of number 1, then I'm going to be, it goes along with what you're saying. But oftentimes there's more opportunity, if you will, coming through the back door. Relationally with people who are the 4, the 3, or the 2, because those are the guys who are on the field actually making what it is that, you know, you do, you love, you support, whatever you want to do to get in the house. They both get into the house. It's just different opportunities, different ways to enter. Backyards represent family. They represent community. They represent hanging out. They represent party. They represent, where do you grill? The backyard for the most part in the South.
That's great.
Where do you do parties? You do in the backyard. Where do you do, right? So community, the family, the relational aspect. So oftentimes we need to think beyond the, hey, maybe the intro for me isn't the front door. Maybe it's me building the community and the relationship in the backside of things, if you will, to enter the same house, but to do it with the humility, because the back doors aren't as fancy.
Nope.
They don't look as cool, and they're not really prettied up. Most back doors look probably pretty beaten down, as much use as they get. Right? And so as you're coming in the back door, you're still entering the house, but you're entering it more on a relational level through the people who really do bring organization to what's happening within the house, the family side of things. And then really you find yourself through the humility being elevated into the same place, just a different approach. Many of us, we don't approach relationships that way because, you really can't do something for me because you really don't have that title. And like you said, I've been there before, but it's interesting when you slow down and you really take inventory of the moment that you're in and realize, you know what, this is an unassuming person. I'm going to invest. I'm going to look in their eyes. I'm not looking to the next. I'm living this moment, and the beauty that comes out of that, the relationship that can flourish from that, and the opportunities to come through an avenue, which might be the back door that you never thought, by talking to somebody that might not have been that front door experience that you were expecting.
Relational connection is the key. You can look for these quick little epic moments, or you can look to lean into relationship. You're going to find relationship is the access point to what really is your road to where reaching your God assignment lies. And I think about an interaction I saw with you and an individual. It stuck with me, because if you can imagine, crowds are starting to build walking through. So you have thousands of people, and you have these sponsors who are, they're selling stuff. They want you to learn about what they're doing that can really be a help to you. It's traffic time. So really, if you've already been talking to somebody, if you're aware, you want to kind of get out of the way to let other people learn about this great product. And I remember you telling this individual, you had the awareness to realize, I've already talked a little bit. And you said, well, let me back off. And he looked at you and he said, you're the only thing that matters to me right now. And when he said that, I thought, oh my gosh, that was good.
A lot to be learned from that. That pastor at that moment, he's very successful, platform, massive church. You'd know who I'm talking about. He was at a booth, and we were talking about something that he was representing. And I did have the self-awareness to know, you know what, we've pretty much landed this plane. We really have. And I didn't want to take away from his time to be able to connect with another person. But when he said that to me in paraphrasing of, you're the most valuable thing to me right now in this moment. And I was like, wow, that's what I'm talking about. And that's the approach that we need to begin having. And I say we, I'm talking about me.
Yeah, me too.
That I'm learning more than anything in this season of life at 46, about to turn 47 in June, is that I've been missing out on a lot of those moments for the majority of my life because I was the networker, the connector, and I'm like, hey, what's up? And then I found my familiar, man, I talked to 100 and some people today, man, and I'm really, it was more fluff than anything. There was no meat, there was no value, there was no seasoning, there was no salt, no pepper. Like it was just on to the next, on to the next, on to the next, on to the next. I'd be in a conversation, see somebody walk behind, say you and I are talking, right? And I see somebody out of the corner of my eye. I would literally totally disengage from our conversation, go, what's up, man? They'd come in and honestly have other people break into our conversation and think like no big deal. And I'm like, I'm not living my life that way anymore.
Yeah, so good.
I am slowing down, and I don't, like, literally, there were a few people that I could see out of the corner of my eye who wanted to, because of our relationships, who wanted to hang out, and used to, the old Rhett would have just, oh, come on in, right? New Rhett, no. I'm like, the person I'm connecting with is the most important. And if that conversation's important, they'll still be there, or I'll go find them. And I did. I sent them a text later. It's like, hey, I noticed, sorry, I was in a conversation, would love to connect and, approach that conversation differently. I'm not trying to be, rude, but like, I want to make sure that the people that God has put in front of me right now in this moment, whether it be my wife, my son, my buddy, a pastor, or somebody that's very unassuming, looking for like, hey, can you tell me how to get over here? Yes, absolutely. And your name is. And just allow the Lord to minister through those moments.
Those epic moments that we are looking for, you're in it right now. And it's like the poet John Mayer says, by the time I recognize this moment will be gone. Mm-hmm. And that's so true. It's like the good old days, or you're in tomorrow's good old days right now. So go ahead and start enjoying it, because these simple relationships that has to start somewhere, they might not seem like they're bringing the value that the epic is so worthy of, right? We buy into that deception. It's right here. It's right now. And I think some of the greatest inspirations for me now as I have gotten older is we have a pastor that I've served with for years on staff. And one thing that I would say is his superpower is he's not rushed. He might have 5 conversations in a single night, where most people are knocking out about 80 conversations. Mm-hmm. And I have learned to appreciate that, because what I have learned from being the recipient of being in a conversation is I feel listened to, and I always feel encouraged. And I think about last night, we had this after party starting, and it's like I was hungry. I was ready to get out. We had some burgers and hot dogs and some ice cream. I was ready. I made my way out the door, or about to get out the door. But it would be, for me, an hour and 15 minutes before I ever got out the door. But I had 3 conversations with former students that I taught, that are now in life doing what they do. And it was so priceless to me not to be in a hurry, but to just stop and go to each one of them and say, what are you doing now? Or I've heard you're doing this. I'm so proud of you. Or it's not about me or my advancement. It's all about them. But yet I'm the one walking away feeling like I've just had value added to me. We can chase epic all we want, but if you just go for these ordinary moments and enjoy the moment, you've got some extraordinary stuff, as we always say, wrapped inside. I remember years ago, I'm going to take us back, Rhett.
Okay.
As we've been playing music forever together, and we were playing at this venue, this church had us out. And I'm telling you, it's this worship moment, and we're having a blast. Well, we are very much, reading scripture. We're reading the Old Testament of the presence of God and how it would literally, like, physically manifest. And you read about this, it'll blow your mind.
Yeah.
I had never really experienced what I've read there, in the physical side. I have in my heart. So we're on the stage, and I remember I'm singing this song, and guys, there's this fragrance that hits the room, and I begin to smell it. And I'm getting emotional because I'm thinking, we done did it. We done did it. It's manifesting. This stuff that I was reading in the Old Testament, it's here. And I had to share my excitement first with the bandmates. And I remember running to one of our guys, and I'm like, can you smell it?
No, we are on a platform leading worship in a moment in front of hundreds of students. Lights are out for the most part, a couple spotlights on us. It's an intimate moment. Musically, we're really not really even saying anything.
Right.
We're just kind of letting chord progressions happen in a way that just creates this ambiance, this feeling of I just want to sit in God's presence, and I just
surrendering your
surrender.
life.
I want to find rest. It's just a peaceful moment. It's a beautiful moment.
Beautiful.
And again, I think it's interesting. We're just reading Old Testament, New Testament. We're all in. We're reading places in Scripture where we see God was a fire by night and a cloud by day. And just all the wonderful illustrations of how God showed up in real, physically tangible, supernatural ways that did happen.
Yeah.
And so we were in these moments of thinking one day, like that's the ultimate. I'm talking about epic.
Yeah.
Like we led from a place of going, yeah, this is nice, but man, there's going to be a moment that God uses us just like he used in the Old Testament, in New Testament, in a way that we're going to see the presence of God show up, not just in our like feeling, but like seeing.
Yes.
Right. And it was almost like it's not epic enough until we see that happen. Let's clarify. Like that's where we were. A lot of zeal, not a lot of wisdom. And not that we needed a sign, but it would kind of like we would have loved to have seen the sign show up.
Been awesome.
And that was the moment we were in. And when you start smelling something and you lean back and I forget the first guy you looked at, and I'm smelling something too. And I'm looking around.
So I go to one of the band guys and I'm just almost crying. Can you smell it? And he's looking at me, kind of giving that smelling look, like looking around, like
confused, like
confused. I run to the drummer. I'm like, "Can you smell it?" And he's trying to play the drums, but he's looking at me, creating atmosphere on the drums, but he's looking at me like, "What?" And I keep saying it. And of course, then I have to go to my best friend Rhett.
I'm playing bass. I'm probably on my knees at this point, just kind of playing the chord progression. And I am aware and I'm seeing what you're doing, but I'm also like trying to figure out what's really happening here.
Rhett, can you smell it? And then I tell Rhett, I need to let the room know. So I go to the microphone because now it's time to proclaim he's here. Like physically, guys, it's fire, it's cloud, it's everything. Oh my goodness. And right as I begin to announce it, I just have this feeling of being jerked back from the mic. And I remember in the moment losing my holiness because I'm ticked.
Yeah, you looked at me like, I'm really mad at you right now. What are you doing?
Because it was Rhett who jerked me back from the mic, literally by like the back of my collar. And I looked at him and I was like, what, man?
I said, bro, the spotlight is on fire. Because by that time I looked around and we saw the guys up in the booth. And there were like 3 guys trying to put out a spotlight up there. It's on fire. And the gel, right, that covered it was on fire. And it billows of smoke. We had no haze machine, but billows of smoke from the balcony just coming in. And
evidently that gel has like a little fragrance of plastic that will really potent smell that hit that entire auditorium. But it's I mean, true story. And I mean, I thought I was as convinced looking for the epic, but the whole point of that is stop looking for the epic because you'll find nothing more than a spotlight on fire. It's just a bunch of plastic being burned up.
It's so good.
But I will tell you something, Rhett. It would be a couple of years later. I'm actually in the same venue, a different group of guys at that time. And there is a pastor who just joined the staff of actually Highlands, where I've been at since the beginning. And it was someone who had just moved from the other side of the country. And I'm at a concert playing, and I look in the audience.
Yeah.
And that pastor, who had so much he could have been doing that night, getting acclimated to a new city, his family, all this stuff. I see him sitting on the 3rd row, and he is not only just him, but he's brought several people with him. They drove 40 minutes to come and just support. There's nothing in return. They're supporting me living out a dream at that time. 23 years later, we're still doing life. We're still doing ministry together. And we have gone on so many adventures that there's a seed that was planted on that night, that things that he has reaped without the goal of reaping those. And that, to me, that's epic.
Something extraordinary came out of an ordinary moment to where somebody truly wanted to come and add value by being there to support a dream that you have and honestly, just probably experience the gift that God's given you in the team and what you're doing and how you're serving. more than likely with the hope that there would be a relational connection to do something together and to serve well and to see how your gift might attach to that. But at the end of the day, that person took a step and realized, whether or not something ever does happen back in return on their end, I'm going to go support, I'm going to go love, I'm going to encourage, affirm, and just be like, dude, this is great, you know, and without asking for anything in return. And if anything came out of that moment, it was a great connect to bless somebody. But it's amazing how that in return for you created this affirmation and this love to go, wow, like that added value to me. I want to go add value to them. And that partnership began to happen because it was a win-win for both. You maximize a very ordinary moment and it turned into something very extraordinary. I think about the moment. I would not be doing what I'm doing today as an executive, offsite executive pastor who gets to coach and consult a staff and a team and get to do that from Birmingham, Alabama, for an incredible man of God. I call him a pastor of pastors, Pastor Clay Ramirez in Twin Falls. There was a moment in 2018. It was right before we were getting ready to plant the church. We were at Grow Conference. I'm at Grants Mill. That's the central location campus where they do broadcasts from at Church of the Highlands. And there's a guy from Twin Falls, Idaho over at was it Greystone or Grandview campus? And you met him through an ordinary conversation and found out he was from Idaho. And you text me and said, hey, there's a guy from Idaho I think, you ought to meet. I was like, okay, cool. I didn't know him. And here I am trying to connect with people. And I was like, you know what? I'd love to go meet him. So I missed a moment over here where I was at, and I drove across town and to be intentional to meet this gentleman, and very unassuming. But I tell you what, he's turned out to be my second best friend in life. Yeah. And I would have never expected that from that one moment. But because I took the time to go over, to meet, to greet, and us connect, we sat on the front row, we worshiped. I didn't think anything of it. I just enjoyed the moment. And I thought, well, if anything, it's just another person I'll get to know. I didn't have an agenda in my mindset other than just, hey, I need to know more people. And what God birthed out of that was a relationship that over time, some 6 years later now, that's turned into, literally, I've never served a greater pastor who has a heart for people and who has learned to live in the moments and just be there. And I've never seen somebody do that as well as he does. Much like the other pastor that you were mentioning, he does that oh so well to where I'm like, oh, man, I'm learning so much. And the church is growing and it's flourishing because of how well they just take care of people, love people in the moment, and they're not rushing the moment. What I'm thinking about living in this moment is, had I not taken the time to drive across town in an ordinary moment and just meet him and talk, and then just kind of just be intentional of just, hey, let's stay connected, the moment that I'm living in now would have never existed, ever. And God took something very ordinary, two people, Clay Ramirez, Rhett Barden, ordinary moment, that has flourished into, we'd call it producing fruit, if you will. Producing return on investment, not only relationally, but in ministry and what we're doing. And I just think if I'm listening to our podcast and I'm thinking about where I'm at, wherever you are in life, don't rush the moment that is right in front of you. As miserable as it may seem, there is perspective to be seen and joy to be found, even in the mundane, and to realize that what seems so ordinary, I know we've talked about this before, but what seems so ordinary that's right in front of you, if you'll slow down enough, you'll begin to see the color in it, and you'll begin to see the extraordinary, and God can turn that kind of stuff into so much beauty.
Yeah, what would it look like if we engaged every individual with the thought of establishing genuine relational connection and to listen to what's on their heart?
Proverbs 11:25, a generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed.
Thank you for listening to Armchair Authentic with Rhett and Justin. The artist in me is ready to create some content, and I know the same thing about Rhett. Email us at info@armchairauthentic.com. Send in your questions, maybe some situations that you're going through, and we want to help you work through it. So until next episode, we leave you with an 80s Fade Out. Fade Outs are so awesome because it's like the song Never ended.
We just keep talking.
But yet it was like the podcast episode was still in its 30 to
We'll just keep
40
going.
minute range, or
Yeah.
was it?
I don't know. It's
Are you still listening to
It's
it?
like Phil Collins. Doom, 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 doom.
Or like
Yeah,
McDonald's
just
in the
keeps
80s
moving.
was just amazing. Your
McDonald's
experience
was good.
never ended.
Playgrounds were awesome.
Michael Jackson, his songs were epic. He put those gloves on. He'd moonwalk endless.
I wear my sunglasses at night. Stalker song.
Mr. T, Pity the Food.
I pity the fool.